I'm Angela Kelly Robeck, host of the Empowered Principal Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. And before you go, it'd be so cool if you helped out the podcast. How could you do that, you ask? Glad you asked that question. Here are 3 ways. 1, you could tell a friend and share links. 2, you could go to my website and leave a review and subscribe. And 3, you could click on the link on my website homepage to buy me a coffee. And by doing this, you could donate $1 or $2 to help me address the costs associated with producing the podcast. That would be so cool. You are awesome. Enjoy the show.
It's the Education Podcast, your favorite show, with lots of groovy guests and they share what they know. So crank it up to 10 and let your neighbors know that here's another show with Dr. Steve Milletto. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12. With Dr. Steve Milletto.
Hey, welcome back. Steve here, and this is another one of those, just me by myself, and it's a continuation of the last one, which was about mediocrity. You know, not settling for just okay. Getting to excellence. Pursuing getting better. So last time we talked a little bit about mediocrity and what it is, and some other words that fit with it, like it's acceptable, it's adequate, it's good enough, or just okay. This time I'd like to talk about how it kind of manifests itself into the work setting, especially around us in schools and in organizations that work with schools. One of the things that can happen is that, some people might avoid doing work. Yeah, I know it's kind of difficult when you're in schools, but let's talk about how that happens like that. Like, I inherited an administrator one time who, that person would, if the radio call came on that they needed an administrator in such and such space, that administrator would disappear. You would not see that administrator where they needed to be. Instead, that person would go to the office or go to their office or, just find some way to disappear into the building. It was sad when I had to have that conversation with that person. I mean, it's like, that's not what we're there for. So we can't avoid work. Now, if not addressing something like that, if that's allowed to happen, mediocrity sets in. Well, that's an administrator. How about in a teacher's classroom? Well, the same sort of thing. How about it's September and school started August 1st, or it's October and school started the beginning of September, and the teachers don't know the kids' names. Huh? That's, if you allow that to happen, there's a huge area for mediocrity, and that's avoiding work too, because it takes time to learn kids' names. And if you don't learn their names, well, my goodness, why should I pay attention to you if I'm in your class? Because you don't know who I am. And let's not even go there where all the other issues that it can create. By the way, change the names, not mention the names, situations a little different, but these are real stories. Real things that I've seen happen and had to deal with. Here's another way that mediocrity can set in. If you're not taking time to do more, all right, there's that aspect of, could I have done more? Right? Do you understand what I'm talking about? I mean, the idea that you just kind of go, that's all I'm going to do today. That's all the time I need to spend on this. I'm going to give them their worksheets. They're going to do their work. They're going to give it back to me, and I'll give it back to them in 2 days. I'm just going to talk through the topic and not try and find how to do something engaging and make use of my time, whether connecting with other teachers and making something a little bit bigger in order to make it engaging, and I'm being collaborative and so forth. I mean, have you thought about the idea that could I do more? Because sometimes adults can get into this idea that, I'm going to leave as soon as the kids, or they beat the buses out of the parking lot. Do you know anybody like that? They're right out there, in the parking lot and gone, man. Which takes away the ability for a kid to stop by, especially in a high school, to stop by and say, hey, can you help me with something? To deal with this, some teachers and administrators create office hours to say, these are times in which you can definitely catch me here to be able to assist you and stuff like this. But that's doing more. Hitting the doors right after the kids are gone, boom, in the parking lot, out the door, out the parking lot, away from school. Woohoo! Another way a teacher can do more is by sponsoring a club or a team or some sort of organization in the school. And that takes time and that takes effort. And especially, one of the things you can do to help you out with that is find another colleague to come help you with that. You know what I mean? I'm sure in your school some people who don't do anything like that, and then others who do everything like that. Whether you've stopped to thinking about it or not, because there's some detractors about thinking that, I don't need to do that stuff. I don't get paid enough to do that. Well, it depends on what you're in school for. If you're there as an educator, one of the things you want to do is be able to connect with kids so you can reach the kids, so you can get the kids wanting to learn more and open all kinds of doors for them after school, after they graduate from school. But it takes your time in order to help make that happen. Some of the colleagues that I've worked with over the years that have been band directors or football coaches or basketball coaches or soccer, not to leave anything out, theater directors. There's any number of things, and service club coordinators and sponsors, and there's any number of activities out there that by doing that, they create opportunities for kids to connect with each other as well as connect with them, as well as connect with the school. And that requires doing more. One of my favorite was an art teacher who he made his classroom available to students during lunchtime and after school and sometimes before school so that they could, not just work on art. He also was a big fan of role play games. And so he had a table that they turned into a little city and they would play, whatever that popular role play game was at the time. That's doing more. One of the things that happens with an administrator is that, so let's even up some of the stuff here. Settling for less and that's adequate is not really supervising. And what I mean here is I'm not talking about the classroom, supervising their teachers and stuff like this. I'm talking about an administrator at events where they're there to supervise. One of the things that I've had happen is when I've gone to other schools where I'm the visiting school and I'm the principal or assistant principal there, and you're trying to connect with the other administrator or whatever to let them know that you're there or something like this. And it's like finding, it's like that game, Where's Waldo? Because in some places what's happened is the administrator on purpose does not wear things that identify them. Like, that administrative shirt. The only thing they're wearing is an ID badge that you got to, figure out, that's the one, that's the administrator. I've actually been at places where I've said, can you point me in the direction of your administrator? And kids go, yeah, up there in that top row up there by herself or by himself. Whereas at some places you go and they're right there talking to you. One of my all-time favorite was a school that had students waiting at this baseball event for, they'd ask you, oh, you're the administrator from such and such school, and say yes. And they'd say, welcome, and let us know if we can help you with anything. Ooh, that's going beyond. But it's sad when you have to play Where's Waldo at at some of these events, because that's not what they're there for. They're there to be there in case something happens or they need to address something. And as well as to connect with kids, as well as to connect with the parents and the adults who are also there. That's the going beyond type thing. Sometimes I've had to deal with a situation where the administrator wants to hang out in the office and just basically is let the coaches know, if you need me, call me on the radio. And it's like, no. That does not work that way. All right. There's no portal system to get you there immediately if they need you. And there's any number of reasons. It doesn't have to be bad. It could be that there's an emergency medical thing, or it could be that someone has some serious issue that's going on. It doesn't have to be something crazy like a fight or something like that. But if that's going on, settling for mediocrity there too. Some of my best conversations have happened at games, talking with parents, talking with kids, talking with teachers, talking with community members. One of the things that as a teacher, do you go to student events? As an administrator, do you go to student events? Well, do you? Those are awesome. And you don't have to stay forever. Because I got to tell you, swim meets last a long time. Track meets last a long time. But when you say hi and they see you and you chit chat with them for a minute, and they introduce you to their parents and stuff, and that's good stuff. That's going beyond. That's not settling for okay. That's not letting mediocre be there. That's saying I care about what you do. And it impacts your class, impacts the school. Because the kids start to care about, if you care about me, I'm going to care about what you're doing. One of my favorite stories that goes with something like that is when I went to a wrestling event, and this was during my first year at the school as a principal, and kids were all excited to see me, and so were the parents. And after it was over with, I said to the coach, I said, why is everybody so, I go to all these different events. And he said, in 15 years, I haven't had an administrator be at my wrestling events. Wow. Wow. You don't have to go to everything as a teacher, but you choose those things that you attend and interact with. As an administrator, you may not have as many choices, but going to those events and interacting when you're there as well is important. And maybe choosing one or two things beyond that you didn't have to. I mentioned swimming a minute ago. One of my favorite things was to go to a swimming event where it really wasn't necessary. It was an amazing amount of people there from all over the district. Kids are excited to see me. They're excited to see you too, to know that you took time, because one of the problems with long events like that is that they are used to not seeing somebody. Do you see where I'm going here? This is all stuff that, if it's not there, it means it's just a mediocre, it just means it's a mediocre environment, climate of that school. It's okay. It's adequate, but nobody's going beyond. How about other things in the school? How about failing to bring up issues and address them with your colleagues to say, we really need to address this. We have this happening or that happening. Let me give you an example. For example, running out of toilet tissue in the bathrooms all the time, or there's a problem with the kids being able to get in the building in the mornings, or maybe there's an area in the building that really needs to be supervised, and there's lots of problems there, but no adult brings it up. But the kids do, and they avoid it, or they make sure that they go through there with a pack of other kids so that they don't have issues. One of the schools I went to as a principal, they were telling me about all the problems they had in this area of the campus. It was like all roads lead to Rome type of thing. And I said, well, how many people supervise it during the day? And I got crickets as the answer. Do you know what I mean? You ask the question, how many people supervise it? And you hear this. Yeah, nothing. That problem was easily solved. We assigned people to that area throughout the day. Guess what stopped happening? That's what I mean by failing to bring up stuff. You're good with the status quo. How about meeting with parents? I expect teachers and administrators to meet with parents, including myself. But if you avoid that, if you try to handle it all by email, oh my gosh, don't do that. Email can be so misinterpreted. But if you just try and handle it by email or by playing phone tag, that's not good. You're going to create a bad relationship, not make a good one. Or the parents say something like, oh, well, at least the teacher attempted to contact me. Nope. That's not what's going to happen there. When you come onto a campus, maybe you see that there's a back way out of the campus that during certain times of the day kids are going through, but that'd take work to be able to address that. So I'm just going to look the other way. I see nothing. I know nothing. I'll do nothing. And that's just setting you up for failure because something's liable to happen that you wish hadn't happened. How about the thought of what you do to design lessons? I know the administration might require you to have lesson plans. Ooh, yay, that's, you should want to do lesson plans, all right? Because you're designing an activity or a series of activities or events that are going to happen in your classroom. And it's all about delivering the content so that it's engaging and the kids get excited about it. Well, that takes time. And especially if you can figure out how to collaborate with a colleague, like, you're teamed in a school, a middle school, a high school, or in an elementary school, working with your colleagues to make something bigger happen so the kids get excited about it. Well, that takes planning. That takes working together, and that takes spending time together. And that is beyond okay. That is beyond adequate. That is getting to excellence there. That pushes that thought of mediocrity out the window. How about other things that can be done? Like if you're an administrator in a school, creating some sort of way that students can get information to you about things that they don't like or things that they do like. Creating a group that meets with the principal regularly or meets with some staff members regularly or something similar with when it comes to meeting with the principal, inviting anybody and everybody who wants to be on a leadership team or on a team that's going to design some curriculum changes or something like this. Getting more involved. See, that's going beyond meh, way beyond meh. The problem is that you got to give up some of that control and you got to be willing to listen. It's funny. One time I was in the parking lot. I was leaving my office. This was when I was a principal in this one school, and it was probably like 6 p.m., somewhere in that range. And I was walking out to my car, and one of my students came riding up on his bicycle, and he circled around me. He said, "Hey, Mr. Milletta, how you doing?" And I said, "Hey, I'm doing good. Yourself?" He said, "I'm doing all right." And he just chit-chatted with me for a little bit. That was cool. Do you allow that to happen? Because that's going beyond what is expected. Because I got to tell you, one of the problems as an administrator in a school is that a lot of times, depending on if you do discipline all day, you can start thinking that every kid's trouble. And they're not. Even the ones who get in trouble, most of them are, they needed to think through what they did so they don't do that again, type of thing. But think about this. Can you take a minute to stop and look around the school and see what's missing from here? What could we add that's missing? What could we do better at? What could we make our life and the life of the kids and the community more engaging with the school? Well, one of the things I'm talking about there is, if you're working at a school that hasn't had a homecoming parade since the 1970s, and at the time of recording this is 2025, right? Well, don't you think that maybe we ought to look at doing something like that? That'd be cool, because then you could teach kids how to build floats and do things and organize this type of parade from an elementary school, involve the elementary and bring them up to the high school and do some cool stuff like that to celebrate homecoming. But that takes effort. That takes time. That goes beyond meh. That goes beyond it's okay. That goes and pushes that mediocrity out the window. Because that takes a lot of collaboration to make something like that happen. How about on the adult side? I've been some places where they hadn't had an adult activity, aka party, for just the adults. And I'm talking like a seasonal party or something like that, where it's off campus and you all come together and you break bread and you have a good time. Oh my gosh, it's like you seriously have not had one of these. Nope. I've been here for this many years, and in those years, and to be specific, this one school I went to in 11 years, they had not had something like that. In another one, it was right in the same bracket of time frame, like 15 years. It's like, oh my gosh. And when you do something like that, you invite everybody, cafeteria, custodial, teachers, administrators, everybody on your staff, on your team. You invite PTA presidents and and their teams and stuff like this if you want. That's a blast. And what makes it even better is if you have somebody who's good at making games, create some games and activities where people can win, door prizes and stuff like that. That makes it even better. I had an athletic director one time who, one of the things he liked to do is he would get one of these vendors to donate these new pairs of athletic socks. And so he'd give away, his door prize were socks at those games. It was awesome. And that's seriously thinking outside the box. I'll bet the people who won those socks will never forget that athletic director. He was a hoot. Do you see where I'm going with all this? There's things that you can do. Making sure that you're involved in the school, making sure you're involved in the class, that you're collaborating with your colleagues, that you're participating, that where there's things missing, you're making suggestions on, could we do this? Could we do that? To get beyond adequate, to get beyond it's okay, to leave meh behind and push mediocrity out the window. So what are you doing to escape mediocrity in your place of work, in your business, in your organization, in your school? What are you doing to not settle for just okay? Do you have something you do? It would be awesome if you reached out to me and told me what you do to break that cycle of mediocrity and ho-hum and meh and it's okay. And there's a couple ways you could do that. You could go to my webpage at stephenmiletto.com, and there's a contact place at the very beginning, and you could click on that and send me an email where you could share what you do. Also on that page down at the bottom, there's a little voice recorder that you can click on and leave me a message that way. As well as you could send me an email at my podcast email, which is stephenmiletto@gmail.com. So share with me what you do to make your day engaging, to make sure that you're pushing mediocrity out the window, to make sure you're not settling for it's just okay. And in the end, the kids, the community, the other staff, team members are loving it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing. Have a great day. Hey, you have been listening to Teaching Learning Leading K12, a podcast to help you help kids achieve their dreams. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is a member of the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is a member of the podcast network based in Canada called Voice Ed Radio. Voice Ed Radio, your voice is right here. The opinions expressed on Teaching Learning Leading K12 are those of the guests and host. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is intended to share ideas, advice, and suggestions. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is produced for educational purposes. Hey, thanks for listening. It would be awesome if you visited my website at stephenmiletto.com and connected with me, left a review, and listened to more episodes. And by the way, you could also share it with your friends, with your family, and your colleagues. Thanks so much. You're awesome.